signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Under Mayor's business, again, I just want to thank the department heads and the rest of the staff for just stepping up to the plate with all the additional work that we've had recently and a lot of activity that's going on, a lot of phone calls and others interested in development in other areas. So I want to thank the staff for that. They've been very, very helpful. Second thing I want to mention is a week ago Friday, we had the groundbreaking for the Verona Area Theater Group. And let's see, I don't want to forget anybody. Heather was there, and Mr. McGilvery was there, and Adam Sayre, I think, were this, and Pat Lytle, and Jack Linder as well, and Alder Linder was there as well. So thank you for those of you that attended. It was a very nice crowd for the groundbreaking, and BACT is excited and looking forward to breaking ground in early July. So with that, I'm going to move to the engineer's report. Ms. Fisher, please.
Thank you. For the Northern Lights North Nine Mound Road construction project, the northbound lanes of Northern Lights are open and traffic has been shifted to them for both directions. The contractor has completed the removal of the old North Nine Mound Road and installation of storm sewer. The contractor is currently placing base course and preparing for curb and gutter construction. For the Church Street, South Marietta Street, and Grove Avenue reconstruction, a pre-construction conference was held last Tuesday, and a public informational meeting was held last Thursday. The contractor has installed notice boards, traffic control, and soil erosion control measures. On Friday, Church and Grove were milled, and today the contractor started digging. It's an area that's heavily congested with utilities, so it may be a little bit more slow moving than what you would see in other areas, but it's proceeding as we expect. The city is also currently working with the school district to finalize the water main easement on a private drive. For the US Highway 18151 Epic Lane on-ramp, AECOM is waiting to receive soil boring information to complete the design of the new bridge. Plans are scheduled to be submitted by early July, and construction of the new lane is scheduled for spring of 2017. For County Highway PD reconstruction, Shady Oak Lane to Woods Road, the city is continuing to work on obtaining the necessary right-of-way for the project in order to allow construction to commence. For the Community Park and Park Lane parking lot construction, both parking lots are paved. There's a small section of sidewalk that is potentially being reworked. Otherwise, everything is complete. For the 2016 street rehab project, a pre-construction conference was held on June 9th. A public information meeting is scheduled for this week, June 30th, to provide information to affected residents and business owners, and construction is scheduled to begin on July 5th. Traffic control measures and soil erosion control measures may be installed prior to that date. I should also note that the city received 2.8 inches of rain this weekend, and so the city is currently working with contractors and developers to get any sediment runoff cleaned up. So if you notice any of that, that will be cleaned up this week. With that, if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Are there any questions for Ms. Fisher this evening? Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Carla.
Thanks.
We'll move then to committee reports. We'll begin with the Finance Committee. Mr. McGilvery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just make a note, we didn't have enough people to have a quorum this evening, so none of these issues were addressed at the Finance Committee level. So if there are any questions you have, we do have Cindy here, as well as Mr. Taves, who can talk about the promissory notes that we'll be taking up here in a little bit. If you have specific questions about payment of the bills, we could address those as well. We do have that here. Just note that we will be revisiting this in 2 weeks' time with these particular bills, as well as the bills that will be on that set.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'll make a motion to approve payment of the monthly bills in the amount of $451,958.69.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvery. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. McGilvery, please.
As always, thank you for fighting for that, gentlemen. I appreciate that. Three of the larger items from this month's bill, first being to AECOM Technical Services for engineering services on Nine Mound, Locust Drive, Shady Oak, and some utility work. We have $75,855.78. Second being to Hammersley Stone for community parking lot and Park Lane parking lot. That amount $126,127.97. And finally, the third item would be the soils and engineering services for Nine Mountain Road, Epic, and Community Park, as well as Locust Drive and the West End. That amount $48,113.75.
Thank you, Mr. McGilvery. Are there questions or comments for the Finance Committee or for Cindy? Questions or comments on the bills? Not seeing any, the motion before you is to approve the payment of bills in the amount totaling $451,958.69. All those in favor of the approval of bills signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. Mr. McGilvery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under item 8A2, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R-16-032, authorizing the issuance and sale of $9,890,000 of general obligation promissory notes series 2016A.
We have a motion by Mr. McGilvery. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Touche. Mr. McGilvery, please.
We do have our resident expert, Mr. Todd Taves, here. I'll turn the floor over to him, and if you have any questions, I would ask you to direct them to him as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Taves.
Prior to the meeting, I had distributed two different documents, a summary of the sale handle, which I'll review. There's also a final copy of the resolution, which you had a draft for within your agenda materials. The first thing I would note is the actual amount you'll be issuing is $9,755,000. We were able to reduce the issue size, and I'll discuss why that is in a moment. But if you can open that sale there report, there's a cover page with some narrative and financial summary, but I'd ask you to turn past that, and the first exhibit you'll find is the bid tabulation. So we did receive this morning a total of 6 bids. The winning bid was from Visa Road Financial out of Chicago, Illinois. The important number to track over to the far right is that true interest rate column. So in this case, the true interest rate for the 10-year notes is 1.3669%.
Todd, can I just interrupt for a second? Can you push the button on the mic, please?
That better?
That's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
So 1.3669% is the true interest rate, and you can see where the remaining bids track down from there onto the second page. There was only about a 0.1% difference between all 6 bidders, so a very nice, tight, competitive grouping of bids. The page behind the bid tabulation is the proposed general obligation note sizing worksheet that looks like this, and it's got 2 columns. One is prior to the sale, the other is the actual final numbers as of today. So when Mike was here last month, you had approved a resolution to proceed with an offering of $9,890,000. As I mentioned, we're able to reduce the issue size to $9,755,000, a total reduction of $135,000. Now the amount of funds you receive for projects remains the same, so there's really 3 things working here that allow us to reduce the issue size. The first is there was a little over $10,000 in reduced cost of issuance versus the estimate, but the 2 primary factors are, first of all, you received a premium, meaning that the underwriter is paying you more than the face value of the bonds to purchase them. That total is $244,783. Under state law, we've got to keep $191,000 of that and put it into your debt service fund to use to offset portions of the interest payments that will be due next year, but the remaining $54,000 we're able to reduce the issue size. The other aspect is we provide a certain amount that we allow the underwriter to keep as compensation for themselves in underwriting the transaction. In this case, that allowance was $98,900. The winning bidder is only retaining about $34,000, so that $65,000 or so difference is also able to be used to reduce the issue size. So that's how we get down to the $9,755,000. The next page, which is the first fold-out sheet, as you'll recall, within the 10-year note structure, there are several different purposes for the notes. The first and the largest is all the general projects that you will fund with the tax levy. There are also funds included for TID 4, the water utility, the sewer utility, and then a small refinancing that we added in. What you'll see then at the bottom is there's a line that says pre-sale estimated debt service. This is where we had expected you to be with some margin. based on where the market was when we started planning the issue. And that difference column with the yellow or the green shaded number, that's where you ended up versus that estimate. So in the case of the levy funded projects, over the 10-year life of the notes, you'll pay about $123,000 less in principal and interest. On the whole overall issue, it was a little bit under $200,000 to the better in terms of where interest rates came in. On the next page, this is that refinancing I mentioned. This is the Series 2005 bonds. We're refunding the balance of that. And the important numbers here are in the far right-hand column. So what you see in that column is the amount over the next 3 years that the city will save. It totals to a little over $42,000. We had expected that savings to be around the ballpark of about $25,000, so we saved about $18,000 more than we had expected based on actual interest rates. The second fold-out page, this just takes the new note issue and it places it in the context of your existing debt. And what I would point out here is near the far right-hand side. So we've got two green columns with the heavy lines around them. This is what your net levy for debt service will be looking forward, also expressed as a tax rate per thousand of equalized value. And in the pink or the red columns, that was the pre-sale estimate. So all total in terms of how this impacts the levy, you're going to pay about $131,000 less over the 10 years on a tax rate basis that amounts to about a penny in most years versus what we had estimated. For your information and to read at your convenience, we have included a copy of the entire Moody's report. Just a couple highlights from that, and this is found on the first page of the report. They kind of sum it up nicely. The credit strengths of the village are your geographical location as well as the demographics of your tax base, as well as the healthy general fund reserves of the city. They're required to list strengths and challenges, opportunities, and possibilities of a downgrade. So in terms of the challenges, you have a significant concentration in EPIC, no surprise there. That's a large part of the city's economy as well as the region. And as with most growing communities, you have an above average debt burden compared to nationwide comparables, and that's a function of a growing community that needs to fund its infrastructure. So overall, a very positive message from Moody's, no concerns, and the city continues to be on the track that will eventually hopefully lead to a further improvement in your rating. And the very final page, just for reference, is a chart that we call the bond buyer index. This just gives you a sense of where the market is. This happens to look at a 10-year horizon. The bond buyer index is if you're an investor and you're holding a bond that matures 20 years from now, the green line on the graph is the yield that you would receive on that bond. And the interesting thing I wanted to point out is, again, this is for a 20-year maturity, but this is the 10-year low, but it's also the all-time low since this index started to be recorded, and that actually occurred on June 24th of this year. So, in terms of interest rates, you've hit the market literally at the lowest point it's been since they started tracking these indexes. So, great timing for the city and worked out well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Mr. McGilvray, please.
No questions, but I would like to make an amendment, my original motion, and state the actual borrowing package to be $9 million, or obligation be $9,755,000.
Thank you for catching that. I should have caught that as well. And the second agrees. Okay. Questions or comments for Mr. Taves? Any questions or comments?
When's the next low?
We'll work on that.
I was going to suggest to Mr. Taves that anytime he can save us $131,000 on our levy, we'll make room on our council agenda for him. I'm not seeing any questions or comments. The motion before you is to approve Resolution R-16-032 in the amount of $9,755,000. This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Clark, if you'd read the roll, please.
Alder McGilvray.
Aye.
Alder Rieke.
Aye.
Alder Steiner.
Aye.
Alder Touche.
Aye.
Alder Stewart.
Aye.
Alder Diaz.
Aye. And the roll call vote is unanimous. Thank you. Todd, thank you for all your great work. We greatly appreciate it. I know we tell you that every time that you come or Mike is here, but we really mean that. We appreciate the great working relationship that we've had for a long time. Thank you. Mr. McGilvery, anything else from Finance Committee?
That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on then to Public Works, Sewer, and Water Committee. Mr. Touche, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under item 8B1, I'm making a motion to approve ordinance number 16-876, amending Title 9, Chapter 2, Sewer Utility Regulation and Rates of the City of Verona Ordinances.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McGilvray. Mr. Touche, please.
The city had conducted a rate study indicating that an increase in sewer rates is recommended. A two-step rate increase is proposed to take effect on July 1st of 2016 and January 1st of 2017. The City of Verona has not increased their sewer rates since 2012, while Madison Metropolitan Sewer District has increased their rates annual to fund their capital improvement projects. The average rate increase for a residential customer is approximately $4.85 monthly. The amendment also provides the authorization of the Director of Public Works to annually increase sewer rates that the city encounters from the Madison Metropolitan Sewer District. Please note that after the increases, the City of Verona proposed sewer rates is still going to be lower than our neighboring communities such as Stoughton, Monona, Oregon, and McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. Touche. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. McGilvray, please.
Just a small note, Mr. Touche alluded to it in his explanation, but with the mechanism put into place with this ordinance, we won't have to make these adjustments and big steps like this anymore. This will be an automatic thing, which will hopefully keep us right where we need to be as it relates to the utilities.
Thank you very much for adding that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve ordinance number 16-876. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, please.
Under item 8B2, I'm making a motion to approve a consulting services agreement with AECom for traffic signals design at intersection of West Verona Avenue, West End Circle, and Westridge Parkway, contingent upon approval of the amendment to the existing developers agreement with Vanta relative to the costs of traffic lights, professional services, construction, and schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Touche. We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. Touche, please.
This consulting services agreement is for design of traffic signals at the intersection West Verona Ave, West End Circle, and Westridge Parkway. The services provided for the project are traffic signal design, specifications, and plan preparation for construction documents, coordination with the City of Madison, meeting with the City of Verona. Total fees are not to exceed $18,000.
You've heard the explanation. Are there any questions for the committee or for the staff? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the consulting services agreement with AECom. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, please.
Under item 8B3, I'm making a motion to approve change order number 1 for Community Park Parking Lot Reconstruction and Park Lane Parking Lot Construction Project.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McGilvray. Mr. Touche, please.
Change order number 1 is to rectify as-built quantities during construction at both the Community Park and Park Lane parking lots. During construction, unsuitable soils were encountered at Park Lane parking lot. Excavation of the unsuitable soils was required and placement of crushed aggregate base course to provide adequate support for the pavement structure. The base contract value was $328,959.60, will be increased by $41,726.13 to a new contract value of $370,685.73.
Again, you've heard the motion, and the second and the explanation. Are there questions for the committee or for city staff? Any questions? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve change order number 1 for Community Park parking lot reconstruction and Park Lane parking lot construction project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, please.
Under item 8B4, I make a motion to approve amendment number 1 for professional services with Ayers Associates for project ID 5796-10-00, Old County Highway PB Branch Badger Mill Creek.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. Touche, please.
This amendment number 1 is to expand scope of services to a separate agreement. The additional services include the following: prepare an approach justification report to document the use of the longer roadway approaches, complete coordination and prepare associated documentation required to address potential impacts to property protected under Section 4(f) of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1968. Prepare a permit for approval for work required outside the roadway right-of-way. Complete additional design of roadway approaches. Complete design and prepare details required for temporary construction, access road. Reduction in effort required final construction design of twin elliptical pipes with cast-in place end walls instead of either a twin wall, instead of a twin wall cell box culvert or a single span bridge. Complete sizing for culvert for temporary construction, road access, coordinate and hold a meeting with several agencies to follow up on issue discussed at the operational planning meeting. Prepare a this is the big one, prepare a right-of-way plat to address proposed acquisitions required for the project. The base contract value is $53,591.49. It would increase by $11,351.90 to a new contract value of $64,943.39.
Again, you've heard the explanation of the motion. Are there questions or comments for the committee or for staff? There will not be a test later. Questions, comments? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve amendment number 1 for the professional services with Ayers and Associates for project ID 5796-10-00, Old County PB Branch Badger Mill Creek Bridge. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, please.
I do want to note that motion was a mouthful in committee as well. Under item 8B5, recommend motion to approve resolution R-16-033, relocation order and determination of necessity for County Highway M/County Highway PD intersection project contingent upon the environmental document being signed.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Reekie. Mr. Touche, please.
The city is working with the City of Madison and Dane County to improve and reconstruct portion of County Highway M and County Highway PD, including the highway intersection. In addition, certain federal funding will be used for this project. The project requires the city to acquire property and property interests from adjacent landowners to expand and improve the highways and the intersection. This resolution approves the transportation project plat, which is attached, and allows the city staff to work on acquisition of portions of the Enders and Midtune properties. The resolution also confirms 2 important statutory steps. First, the resolution acts as the city's relocation order for the project. Second, the resolution confirms that the project is necessary and for a public purpose. Both of these steps are required for the city to acquire the property and property interests by condemnation if that becomes necessary. In addition, the resolution and transportation project plat deal addresses only a portion of the overall project. It is necessary for the timing of the project that these early acquisitions occur. In the future, city staff will be bringing an additional relocation order related to the larger project to the council for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Touche. Again, you've heard the explanation. Are there questions or comments for staff or for the committee? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve resolution number R-16-033. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, please.
Under item 8B6, I'm going to make a motion to approve amendment for land transfer due to inadvertently installed storm sewer at the West End development.
We have a motion by Mr. Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Diaz. Mr. Touche, please.
When the West End constructed the stormwater improvements, it inadvertently constructed a portion of the improvements on land owned by the Verona Area School District. By this agreement, the school district is deeding land to the city so that the stormwater improvements are located on land owned by the city that is dedicated for stormwater purposes. The West End is paying the school district for this land because the sale was caused by the West End's mistake.
Thank you for the explanation. Are there questions or comments for the committee or for staff? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the agreement for land transfer due to inadvertently installed stormwater at West End Development. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Touche, did you wish to make any remarks this evening regarding?
Oh, yes. Thank you for the reminder regarding Downtown Streets project.
Actually, I was thinking Mr. Reeder's retirement.
Oh, yes. Well, Mr. Reeder, who unfortunately decided he'd rather be somewhere else tonight, this was his last working Public Works meeting, and it's been a pleasure working with him for what I feel is my brief time on the council. I know many have worked with him for many years, and he'll be missed a lot.
As Mr. Touche indicated, it was Ron's last meeting here this evening. I hope many of us can have an opportunity to see him on Saturday, where perhaps we can make some nice comments that will embarrass him, like he would have been embarrassed had he been here this evening. So I know, and I can tell, this is very hard for Ron. He's been here a long time, has done just a great job for the city, and will be missed sorely by many. Nothing against Theron. Theron, we know you're going to do a great job as well. But Ron certainly will be missed, and we look forward to seeing him from time to time, but we did want to at least recognize that this evening was his last Public Works Committee meeting as the Public Works Director. So thank you. Mr. Touche?
And I also need to add something else out of Public Works during a discussion for the downtown streetscape project. During some discovery processes, Public Works discovered that the streets, we originally believed we could remill the streets and continue keeping them nice and improve them, but the discovery processes yielded that we'll have to replace the streets. And the real outcome is our downtown streetscape project's going to be delayed by another year.
Just in addition to that, there will be elements of the streetscaping that will occur this year, but there is a significant amount of the work that will not be done this year. And we had discussions with staff earlier in the week, and then again, the Public Works Committee considered that this evening. And we really believe that it was the right thing to do rather than have a Band-Aid approach, was to move forward and do it the right way the first time. So with that, there will be portions of the project that will be completed yet in 2016, but a significant amount of the work will be completed in 2017. So thank you.
Yeah, specifically the memorial will be finished this year.
Mhm.
I think their intention is to put up more details about what's going to happen in that area, right near the bike trail, right in the shelter there, later this summer. So
Correct.
more to come.
Correct. With that, anything else from Public Works?
Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Touche. We will then move to Public Safety and Welfare Committee. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under item 8C1, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special event permit for the Hop House Brewing Company LLC for a charity fundraiser on Saturday, July 23rd, 2016, from Phil Husk, contingent on adding City of Verona as name holder on the insurance policy, and to add a city police officer at the greeting gate and the entrance gate from the hours of 7 to 10 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Stewart. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Reekie. Mr. Stewart?
Thank you. Phil Husk is applied for a special event permit to hold a charity fundraiser for multiple sclerosis on Saturday, July 23rd, 2016, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The event will take place at the Hop House Brewing Company, 231 South Main Street. The business's parking lot will be used for seating, a food cart, and live music, with metal barricades marking the perimeter of the parking lot area. A temporary premise description amendment is required for serving beer and wine in this area.
You've heard the explanation in the background. Are there questions or comments? Mr. Diaz, please.
I just had a quick question about the reasoning to have a police officer there. I don't see any problem with it, but I know we don't do that for every event. I'm just wondering what the reasoning was.
Chief Coughlin, is your mic on, please?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
We try to do so, and generally do for any event that involves the serving of alcohol, to maintain order there. In this situation, there's only one fence as opposed to two. The time of day, and then with the live music as well. So.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the special event permit for the Hop House Brewing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you. Under item 8C2, I'd like to make a motion to approve a temporary premise description amendment for the Hop House Brewing Company, LLC's Class B beer and Reserve Class B intoxicating liquor licenses.
We have a motion by Mr. Stewart. Is there a sec? I'm sorry.
And I just want to add that this is also contingent upon having the identification of the city of Verona as named holder on the insurance policy, as well as the presence of the police from the hours of 7 to 10 p.m.
Thank you for that contingency. We have a motion by Mr. Stewart. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Reekie. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you. Phil Husk has applied for a temporary premise description amendment for the Hop House Brewing Company, LLC's Class B beer and Reserve Class B intoxicating liquor licenses to include the business's front parking lot located at 231 South Main Street on July 27th, 2016. That actually should be July, as I'm reading the dates on this. That should actually be July 23rd, 2016, if it's referenced on the same date as above, and my apologies.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve the temporary premise description amendment for the Hop House Brewing Company. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you. Under item 8C, and it's 2.2, it's labeled, 2 is labeled twice on your agenda there. I'd like to make a motion to approve liquor license application for Cahoots Inc., doing business as Cahoots at 102 West Railroad Street for the 2016-2017 licensing period. This is also going to be contingent on the approval of satisfying the violations noted by the building inspector, as long as those violations are accommodated by July 10th, 2016.
Just getting caught up here. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Stewart. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Reekie. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you. The 2016-17 liquor license and cigarette tobacco applications for Cahoots LLC, doing business as Cahoots, 102 Railroad Street, were excluded from approval at the June 13th, 2016 Public Safety and Welfare Committee and Common Council meetings due to the building inspection violations noted on the June 10th, 2016 liquor license building inspection checklist. The checklist can be found in the council packet. The owner is responsible for correcting the violations within 30 days of the inspection, which is July 10th, as the annual liquor license renewal date of July 1st falls before the end of the 30-day window. Public Safety, Welfare Committee, and Common Council may vote to grant the Cahoots liquor license and cigarette tobacco license contingent upon correction and noting the building inspection violations.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments? Not seeing any. The motion before you is to approve the liquor license application for Cahoots. All those in favor, with a contingency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
That motion carries with one no vote. Motion carries. Mr. Stewart, please.
Thank you. Under item 8C3, Cigarette tobacco, I'd like to make a motion to approve the cigarette tobacco license application for Cahoots Inc., doing business as Cahoots, 102 Railroad Street, for the 2016-17 licensing period. This too also would be contingent upon satisfying the violations noted in the building inspection from June 10th, to be completed by July 10th, 2016.
We have a motion by Mr. Stewart. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Reekie. Mr. Stewart?
The 2016-17 cigarette tobacco application for Cahoots LLC, doing business as Cahoots, 102 Railroad Street, was excluded from the approval at the June 13th, 2016 Public Safety and Welfare Committee and Common Council meetings due to building inspection violations noted on the June 10th, 2016 liquor license building inspection checklist. The checklist can be found in the council packet. The owner is responsible for correcting the violation within 30 days of the inspection, which is July 10th. As the annual renewal date is July 1st, falls before the end of the 30-day window.
Thank you for the explanation. Questions or comments from the council? Mr. McGilvray, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if, moving forward, I don't know if this is a problem related to when the inspections are being done versus when the license becomes due, but can we look into setting a policy that would put those building inspections at, say, a 3-month window or a 2-month window so that we have time to address these? I don't like the idea. We've been down this road before with a different establishment where we make these approvals and then we are the bad guys because ultimately the liquor license, even though it's contingent upon these repairs being made, those repairs aren't made and we have to go back in. I'd prefer it if we weren't approving things contingent upon these items being addressed. I'd rather have the items addressed and, you know, give the owner time to actually address the items that are listed. And I can't find what the items are. I'm sure they're in the packet. I'm just missing them.
I actually checked the packet as well
Go ahead.
and couldn't find them either.
It doesn't seem like it'd be a hard thing to do. I mean, when we know these things are coming up, a 3-month, 2-month window should be adequate time for a business to address things. I'm sure Chief looks like he's got something he wants to say, so.
Chief Coughlin?
I agree with you, that it would be much cleaner to have the inspection done 30 to 60 days, at least 30 to 60 days or so in advance. So that if you were going to then provide them the 30 days to make the necessary repairs, it wouldn't be approaching the end of their expiration date, which is June 30th. So because it hadn't been done from a committee, we just talked about the implications or ramifications of them not making the contingency, which would be basically leaving them without a license to operate over the 4th of July weekend, which would certainly, I'm sure we would hear from them, and you folks would as well. So in an attempt to try to avoid that, that's what we did, but backing up, the inspection really should have been done prior to June 10th for sure.
I really like your idea, and I think that's something we should move forward with, so thank you for bringing that up.
The items too that you're seeking were at least in the public safety packet and identified, and those could be read if that's helpful.
Ms. Clark, please.
Thank you. That item, the liquor license inspection checklist, is about 3 or 4 pages from the very end of your packet. It's on the back side of one of the pages.
Mr. Stewart, please.
No, the only thing that I would have to agree with Mac's comments, just I think to kind of look at the operational aspect of the timing of things, and possibly we could have a discussion with the city staff about that and readdress that at our next meeting and bring that back to council for review.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Other questions or comments on this agenda item? Seeing none, the approval is for the cigarette and tobacco license application for Cahoots Inc., with the contingencies same as the prior action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That motion carries with Mr. McGilvray voting no. Mr. Stewart, is there anything else from Public Safety and Welfare Committee?
That is all we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job on your reporting out of your first committee. With that, we are moving to old business. We have 2 items that we will be going into closed session for. What I would suggest is that we have both of those motions now. We do them independently, but then we don't have to go into closed session, reconvene, go back in closed session, and reconvene. So if there's someone who would be interested in making the motion for item 9A, it does require us to read it from the agenda, if you would, please. Does anyone want to make that motion? Mr. McGilvery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion to go into closed session. The common council may convene in closed session as authorized by section 19-85, parent 1, parent G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation on which it is or is likely to become involved. The common council may convene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. Did you want me to read?
No, let's take action on that one first, and then we'll read the second one. So we have a motion by Mr. McGilvery. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Touche. This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Clark, if you'd read the roll, please.
Alder Rieke. Alder Steiner.
Aye.
Alder Touche. Alder Stewart. Alder Diaz.
Aye.
Alder McGilvray.
Aye.
And that roll call vote is unanimous. I would now accept the motion on agenda item 9B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion as it relates to the city administrator position. Make a motion to go into closed session. The common council may convene in closed session as authorized by section 19-85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over the governmental body over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The common council may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action in the subject matter discussed in a closed session.
Thank you, Mr. McGilvery. We do have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Touche. Again, this requires a roll call vote. Ms. Clark, if you would, please.
Alder Touche. Alder Stewart. Alder Diaz.
Aye.
Alder Doyle. I'm sorry. Alder McGilvray.
Aye.
Alder Rieke. Alder Steiner.
Aye.
And that roll call vote is unanimous as well. We are in closed session. We would ask for the first issue, agenda item